The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Mr. Zhulkarnain Abdul Rahim.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I stand in support of the amendment bills which will help to further strengthen our vigilance against online scams and enforcement against money mules and abusers of Singpass accounts. With the increase in instances of reported cases of scams both globally and in Singapore, our fellow Singaporeans are even more susceptible to risks of being scammed and taken advantage of as unwitting money mules. I think we've heard from Minister just now on the facts and figures. In the last 2 years, Singapore has lost about $1.2 billion to scams. Scam cases are now more than 1.5 times in number as compared to physical crimes. While we can increase public vigilance and awareness on our defense against scams, we need our legislative framework to remain up to date with technological developments in order to disrupt the operations of scammers, which are increasingly more sophisticated and challenging. One aspect is the use of money mules as a means to facilitate scams and getting scam proceeds out of Singapore. Currently, between 2020 and 2022, out of the more than 19,000 money mule cases investigated by the police, only less than 250 cases were eventually prosecuted, as explained by the Honourable Minister. These cases involve amounts of more than $440 million. That's almost 20% of the entire scams in terms of quantum. Money mules are a key part of scammers' operations here in Singapore, and I agree that there's a lacuna in the law that needs to be plugged. Currently, the evidential challenge is to prove that money mules have actual knowledge or intent to facilitate such criminal activities. Further, money mules are currently charged under the Computer Misuse Act for abetting a person to gain access to the bank account without authority. This provision does not seem the most appropriate for the acts committed. Hence, I welcome the changes proposed by the bills and the direct intervention in this regard. My firm is part of the criminal legal aid scheme acting for accused persons on a pro bono basis, and we see some of these cases. From experience, not all alleged money mules fit the typical stereotype of a criminal scammer. Some of them claim, or maybe are, as much victims of circumstances as the scam victims themselves. If I may share a case about one such young accused person that walked through our office doors. Aged 19 years old, he was serving his NS. He saw a job advertisement and responded to it with the intention of working to support his family of 7 and supplement the income of the sole breadwinner. He ended up giving up control of his bank account and Singpass to an unknown person in return for payment. He thought this is his income or salary. Easy come, easy go. But it's too good to be true. Call it youthful brashfulness. He faced charges now, accused of being a money mule. Besides that case, I've also received appeals during my Meet the People sessions from families in Kiat Hong who also face similar situations. Mostly, these money mules were lured by the prospect of job opportunities, and some were scammed out of their savings and forced to act as money mules in order to regain some of those monies back. We must ensure that the amendments strike a balance between protecting the public and also meting out the appropriate penalties commensurate to the crime and culpability. The proposed amendments to the law would place the burden on the accused money mule to prove that he or she had reasonable grounds to believe that the disclosure of his or her Singpass was lawful, and to take reasonable steps to ascertain the purpose of the person accessing the account and the source of funds and or the person's identity in relation to the bank account. I think this is commonsensical. In practice, it is likely that the person would face difficulty to prove otherwise and may be found guilty under the amended provisions. This is despite the fact that he or she may not have had any knowledge as to how the bank account was being used. There are various offences such as rash or negligent money laundering where the accused money mule has a suspicion that the monies could be criminal proceeds but chose not to verify the legitimacy of such funds. If I may ask, what would be the reasonable steps that a person can take to make such verifications? Perhaps the ministry can consider forming a public reporting office which provides an avenue through perhaps the anti-scam hotline or an enhancement on the Scam Shield app for members of the public and those who genuinely intends to make such verifications. This way, a person can just make a call, alert the agencies or banks of such offer or make verifications for such transactions before it is being made. This can come under the Suspicious Transactions Reporting Office for AML transactions, something which our ordinary members of the public may not be aware of. Next, the burden of proof is about to shift, some say in a drastic manner. I wonder if the ministry may wish to consider delaying the implementation of the amendments while carrying out public education events as to the seriousness of such offences. Because the advertisements are framed as job advertisements, many young persons or even older ones may not appreciate that just by letting another person access their Singpass or bank account, they are committing a serious offence, or as Minister mentioned, the disclosing of their Singpass credentials. In addition, such awareness campaigns should be done in concert with the banks and financial institutions, the Ministry of Manpower and potential employers as well. The risk and dangers of being used as money mules can be amplified through our job-seeking portals to alert potential job seekers of the scams and pitfalls out there. Lastly, I agree with the amendments under the Computer Misuse Act to protect the use of our Singpass credentials. In this regard, may I also suggest that for vulnerable members of our society, like the elderly and adults with special needs, that any changes or unauthorized access to their Singpass accounts also be notified to their next of kin, guardian, or adult children. I raised in this House previously about how one of my Kiat Hong residents who is an adult with special needs, how he was scammed into signing up for various phone lines by scammers and that his elderly parents were helpless to prevent the scam. We need to have a more robust way of protecting the vulnerable groups of our society. Perhaps the use of data analytics to see the pattern of access by such groups can also help alert or red flag any sudden unauthorized access. What are the steps that the ministry will take to bolster such protection? Perhaps before any changes to access to such Singpass account can be made, there can be a two-factor authentication to be approved by the next of kin, the guardian, or the adult children. I thank the Minister for clarifying about the cases of sharing Singpass credentials for genuine legitimate purposes, and also where elderly seeks help to access their Singpass account. So when I do my house visits and my AICs volunteers, they are quite safe in this regard. In conclusion, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, we are working in the right direction to stop the scourge of scams in our midst. This doesn't just affect the elderly, but also the young who are looking for jobs and to earn a decent and honest living, and maybe may not have had the full brunt of life experiences before them. Our people's hard-earned money and life savings are at risk and at stake, and with that, their hopes and aspirations for a better future. I stand in support of the bills.